It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We once again have Maria Espinoza is with us. Maria is the National Director of the Remembrance Project, which honors and remembers Americans and legal residents who've been killed by illegal aliens. Maria, welcome back to the program.
Hello, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on again. This is very sad, the same situation over and over again, the same story, and yet Congress refuses to give President Trump the funds needed to build a wall.
You're exactly right, and I was just going to say that I'm tired. I mean, I am so tired of reading stories like this. When this is something that is preventable. I mean, if we control who comes into this country, we may not catch everybody, but surely we can do better than what we're doing right now.
Absolutely, and it sends a message. And right now, the message is anyone who wants to come here and hurt and kill, maim an American citizen, it's okay. You know, and you can tell by the titles, and just do a quick search on the internet, Paul, and we can see that only the most horrific crimes or these illegal aliens are reported and basically are caught. Otherwise, there are so many illegals that are basically untouchable in the United States because of our sanctuary city policies and the fact that some jurisdictions refuse to cooperate with the federal agents.
On the sanctuary cities issue, how in the world do we go about tackling this? How does the president do it? I mean, anything he tries to do, there's going to be some court, that's just going to say, you can't do that. You can't cut off funds to our city.
Exactly. And, back about 5 years ago now, we sent letters, the Remembrance Project sent letters through another initiative called America First Latinos, because there were so many Latinos. We created this initiative that wanted to have a voice through the Remembrance Project, and who said, no, we don't align ourselves with illegal aliens. Sure, we might speak Spanish or Mexican heritage, but we're Americans first. And we sent letters to every state governor, Paul, because we saw that there were so many liberal judges all across the United States, not just judges, but, even, of course, city mayors and who control the police department. So we saw that this was taking place all across the United States. We wanted each governor to create an office for the victims so they could help navigate through the court system, which was going to, in my opinion, target these activists, far-left, liberal, agenda-driven judges. And as you can see, and you just mentioned, President Trump has stopped at every turn that he makes in trying to rectify and trying to make America safe so that our children have a future here and our businesses can, have a place in our communities to thrive. But, Paula, it's not going to end until a few things. One, we have to get the Republicans on the right track, and they're not on the right track. And I say that Republicans because the Democrats have absolutely rejected the Remembrance Project and even being a voice for American victims who've been killed by illegals. So we have to start prosecuting as well, Paul. I mean, let's be realistic here. If any one of us, any of your listeners, even so much as did anything wrong and broke the law, and especially federal law, we would be prosecuted. But yet, these mayors and judges and you name it, employers breaking our laws, nubbing their noses to our federal laws and for the immigration laws and actually, criminal laws as well. You're not supposed to aid and abet illegal aliens, but yet they do. And some of the employers, they play they don't know by hiring contract workers. They're not officially employees. But see, these are the things that has to be stopped. And take a look at the judge in Oregon who blatantly assisted an illegal alien escape through her chamber door while ICE agents stood out in the hallway waiting to detain this illegal alien.
Mm. Yeah, we are becoming, on this issue, a country of lawlessness, really. And If the law's on the books, it's on there for a reason. And, you know, we have a big problem. I mean, we obviously have a huge problem with the amount of illegal immigrants who are here right now, who, you know, have made lives for themselves and everything else. And that is for us to deal with. I don't understand, you know, at some point. But I don't understand why the Democrats consider the border wall two separate issues, because you know, they're not, or they say it's not a connected issue, and it's like, of course it is, and
Yes.
and they expect us to be ignorant as to what their plans are, because we've done this before with Ronald Reagan, where there was an amnesty and then there was no border security, and here we are today. We're not going to do that again.
Exactly, and I encourage all your listeners to not do that again, because look, the American people, we were promised a border wall under the Reagan administration, and guess what happened? Exactly what's taking place right now, where Congress is refusing to fund it. They promised it, they have not delivered to the American people, and these are the results. And it gets worse, as you know, Paul, that once we ignore one law, the rest will fall as well. So not enforcing our laws on this immigration issue fundamentally undermines the ability to enforce any law. And that's where we're headed. And, you know, you mentioned the people who are here illegally. Well, sometime in their lives, they picked up and left their country, left everything behind, and other family members. So in my opinion, you know, we have to come down and say, if you are illegally in the country, you need to get right by the system. It's not that they don't have an avenue by which to become legal. It's simply that they don't want to, and they absolutely are, again, snubbing their noses at our laws, but also to the American people.
We're talking with Maria Espinoza, again, the National Director of the Remembrance Project, which honors and remembers Americans and legal residents who've been killed by illegal aliens. We were just talking about, you know, the tragedy happened again, a father who's now speaking out after the first day in court, after his daughter was murdered, stabbed to death. We also have these other articles, Maria, tired of waiting for asylum, migrants in the caravan breach the border. Can you give us an update on the caravan? It's kind of fallen out of the news cycle.
Right. You know, and I think they want to let as many in as possible before they even report on this. But there were over, 6,000 caravanners that were waiting around Tijuana, and they moved up to closer to the California border. And now we have from what I hear, the first anchor baby from a caravanner who was born here in the United States, and that was just last month. And I believe she was 19 years old, and she crossed illegally with her 20-year-old husband and a 2-year-old son. And the following day, after crossing illegally into the United States, she delivered a baby in California. And now we, on the taxpayer dollar, are shipping that family to Ohio, where they're going to join other family members who obviously are here illegally.
Is California the easiest place to get in?
Yes, and it's the farthest point, obviously, coming in from Guatemala through Mexico. And we first heard a month ago that the caravanners were going to be entering through Brownsville and the McAllen area. And at that time, I was actually on the ground in McAllen with a mom's caravan there, and they took a detour and headed toward California border. This is a very serious situation, Paul, and I think I don't see this as politics, whatever side of the political system you're on. This is about national security and saving our country, remaining a sovereign country. And we are seeing everywhere, as you mentioned, President Trump is being, stopped and resisted, and everything that he's doing is working toward, again, his slogan, "Make America Great Again." And you can see that he stopped. So people really have to stop and think, what far left globalist agenda is at work here? And you're seeing it right before our eyes. It's not about these women and children, people wanting a better life. My goodness, we have over 13 million children who live in poverty right now in the United States who probably go to bed hungry. We have nearly 500,000 American orphan children who need a home. We have so much crime already. Why are we importing crime? Who's looking at Chicago murders? Paul, we have enough problems in America that we need to fix so that we can be strong. And, we're trillions of dollars in debt, and yet we're saying open our borders to anyone who wants to come here. They can tell us the story. We'll believe it. We can get statistics on how many illegal alien women are having children here and how much the cost is. By the way, it's over $2.4 billion, and that was almost 5 years ago now. $800 million more than what Congress agreed to give President Trump to secure our country. But yet we can't even get the statistics for the Remembrance Project, because we've asked for the statistics on how many Americans have actually been killed by illegal aliens, and we can't even get that. So a lot going on here.
I'm glad you mentioned the border and it being a globalist agenda at work. This is, like, I think, the third broadcast in a row. If you look at what's happening in France, you look at what's happening in the UK, look at the protests, look at Brexit, or the protests that they're having in the UK because Brexit is, the elites are trying to thwart the will of the people. It's weird when developed countries are having the same domestic problems, and immigration is that problem. And so for those people that think there is no globalist agenda, then how come you've got three countries right there, the UK, France, and the United States, and many more, that their people are all complaining about the immigration policies? That, to me, says that there is some sort of concentrated, coordinated effort to thwart the sovereignty of the nation state.
Absolutely. I want to mention two things. 5 years ago, Paul, my husband and I were in a hearing in Washington, D.C. On immigration, and it was the time that Janet Napolitano was supposed to be testifying. To the right of us sat a woman from Italy, and to the left was a young lady from Germany. They were both there to see what the United States was going to do on their immigration problem. And that tells you, that was 5 years ago. But also, about 7 years ago, I attended a seminar here in Houston, Texas, something about the Houston Peace and Justice, and a woman stood up with a Hispanic group and set out what they had done in Houston, and basically they were reorganizing. They, meaning they were together with about 4 different other main groups, like CARE, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, and they had union individuals, SEIU. And she set out five umbrella groups where they all had reorganized, the clergy under one, the chambers under another group, the small organizations, NGOs that we call them now, non-governmental organizations, under another group, the businesses under another group, all left-leaning globalist-type agendas, and they were working really against small organizations like mine, the Remembrance Project, to drive their agenda. And at that time, Occupy first came into, we were introduced to Occupy, and she mentioned it, that there was going to be events that would take place all across the United States that was well-funded and had international interest. So there was international monies involved with that movement that we call now Occupy. And this was several months before the Occupy movement first came out into the public. So this is really scary stuff. I mean, yes, we focus on saving lives and bringing attention to what is taking place right here on our own soil, these preventable deaths, killings, and permanently separate from their loved ones. And you don't see the hostile media. I call it hostile. They're no longer fake news or mainstream, but they're the hostile media against the American public. You don't see our stories in the news other than what you read at Breitbart, Paul. This should be carried throughout the United States. And focus on so
Yeah,
that and educate the people.
Yeah, but now they think that, and I know the media is hostile, but then you have all these other people, who have been brainwashed. They're almost even afraid to read a story like this because they think that they're a bigot. It's like that. I think it was the San Bernardino terrorists. The neighbors next door thought they were up to something good, but didn't report or bad, but didn't report it to authorities, Maria, because they didn't want to be labeled as Islamophobic bigots. And
Right,
so
and
it's, go ahead. Sorry.
And that's part of their agenda. That is included. They have massaged and brainwashed people. They have put political correctness. And guess what? We don't like people calling us names. I tell you, if I subscribed to that thought, I would have stopped long ago, Paul. And I'm so glad that we kept on. And, you can do a search of my name in the Remembrance Project, and you see all these stories for whatever reason. People, that Pelosi wrap-up smear, certainly we've been victims of that. But you know what? We're not stopping. This is too important. And now that we're in it now for over 9 years, we see that there's a huge problem, a big picture, and that is to ruin America as we know it. And you can see it unfolding right before our eyes.
Maria Espinoza, it's always great to have you on. I know obviously the circumstances this continue to happen where young girls are being murdered by illegal immigrants, but I just want to tell everybody to go to the remembranceproject.org if you want to get involved, to be a voice for victims killed by illegal aliens. Maria, I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Paul. God bless you.
All righty. God bless you. Maria Espinoza, everybody. Again, it's the remembranceproject.org.